Welcome to Downpour.com's interview series. I'm Malcolm Hilgartner, and today it's my pleasure to be speaking with Susannah Charleson. Well, welcome, Susannah, and thanks for joining us today. Congratulations on the release of The Possibility Dogs. What a handful of unadoptables taught me about service, hope, and healing. So what motivated you to write this book?
Well, I've always been interested in working dogs, and of course I've been working a search and rescue canine for the better part of 9 years. And so I've always been attuned to what dogs have to tell us. But I was actually at a conference involved with my search and rescue training when, by happenstance, on an icy day, I met a firefighter from another conference in Baltimore. We happened to meet in the same restaurant, and he had been a casualty, a victim of a terrible fire with a wall collapse. And it ended up in severe physical injuries, traumatic brain injury, and subsequent PTSD. And he struggled and struggled with trying to reframe a life where he could no longer be a firefighter. And reframe a life really changed by this event. And I think it was pretty much a despairing situation for him until he was recommended a psychiatric service dog. And that presence of that dog, trained to intervene in the conditions he now had, made all the difference for him. And his approach to his own recovery and his faith and trust in a dog that you could see was completely bonded and responsive to him was really an amazing, pivotal moment in my own understanding of that connection with a dog. And I knew immediately I not only wanted to get involved in that kind of work, but I also wanted to write about it.
That moment of serendipity then just triggered you into this whole series of so many stories and that you relate in the book. Why don't you share some of them in terms of some of the special dogs?
Well, there's some funny dogs, and I think the amazing thing about psychiatric service is that there is no single type of dog that does the work. We so associate labs and German shepherds and occasionally golden retrievers with service dog work. But in psychiatric service, different conditions demand different kinds of needs. And in some cases, some partners need small dogs, lap-sized dogs that can do certain things. And other people need very big, very strong dogs because they may have balance issues as well, or they need the tactile sense of a dog that's got a very good center of gravity. So you never know. I mean, you can go anything from a 5-pound poodle to a 135-pound, Great Pyrenees. So I loved that. I think one of the most interesting dogs that I know is out there doing the work, a dog that is now the companion for a child with terminal illness. And this dog was a dog that ended up in a shelter 3 times through no fault of his own, a series of deaths of his previous owners. He was on maybe a day or 2 before his euthanasia when he was plucked from a shelter. And it turned out that this little dog was completely person-oriented, gave great eye gaze, great eye contact, was very empathic. And he's funny. When music is on, he not only sings to the music, he not only howls, but when he inhales, he whistles. So he's a very musical, funny, clownish little creature, very trainable. And ultimately, he has become not only the companion, but the joy for this child, who will do these things, these little tricks and joyful things for a child who really no longer can even get out of bed. And that's a pretty powerful gift that a dog on death row, plucked out of obscurity, is able to contribute. And I think it's really powerful for the dog, too, because he's the kind of little guy that knows he's doing something well.
Now, you were describing what we usually associate with dogs and humans, that sort of intense companionship. But in the character named Bob, what his dog does with him seems to me on a different order. And the way the dog can respond to his tendencies to start an episode or something like that and redirect him, I think is the way you call it in the book. That's a different sort of thing than we normally associate with dog-human relations.
Right. The dog that I had originally been talking about is what we would call an emotional support animal. The dog you're indicating, which is another point on the scale of this kind of service, is literally a psych assistance dog. And those kinds of dogs, and Haska, the one you're talking about with the fallen firefighter, she can not only recognize when his PTSD is about to bring on an acute panic attack, but she can ground him in reality. So he hears a sound, he thinks it's the same event that nearly killed him, and she can lean into him, or if he starts to hyperventilate, she can lead him to a place to sit down. She can do all those things. He has night terrors as well, I remember he said. And she can recognize them before they actually begin to present. I met him 6 years ago, but I remember him saying he had done some sleep therapy work, and people were amazed to realize that the dog could predict his night terrors before they would even begin to show on the sensors that he was wearing.
Listen to the full interview at downpour.com.